Hello, this is Jason Dupree. Welcome to OCR Talk, or OCR Tech as it may be called in the future. I just got back to my car from being in, make sure I go the right way, from being in Mexico for the second race in the Spartan National Series, Mexican National Series, which was in Valle de Bravo. Which, if you look at it, from an American standpoint, looks like Valle de Bravo, but that's two L's, so it's a Valle. I don't know if you can see it if you are watching the video, but I'm sweating just from walking, because I'm in Dallas, just from walking to the, through customs, and once I got out the building, to the parking lot, to the garage, and, 5 minutes out in the heat, and I started sweating. Valle de Bravo, well, even just Mexico City temperature was nice. It was like 65 degrees the whole time. It was crazy. Now, they did have a lot of rain, so that was part of it, but they are high elevation. And if you've ever been to Colorado, you probably are familiar with, the temperature is pretty nice there too, but when the sun comes out, it just bakes you real hard. Like the sun, I don't know if it's like there's less atmosphere, so that lets the heat get through more. I don't know why, but to me, it always feels hotter. And maybe it's because it's the dry heat. I'm not entirely sure of the reason behind it, but it is, rough when it's hot, when it's sunny. But when it's cloudy, like it's a big swing. So you get either really hot from the sun, or you get very cool from the wind, like if it's cloudy and windy, very rough. So I was actually hoping to record this on the way back from Valle de Bravo back to Mexico City, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I actually got to do some more fun stuff before we left. I actually stayed an extra day I stayed an extra kind of 2 days, because normally I'd fly out on Sunday night. But this time I flew, or Sunday day, and this time I flew out on Tuesday morning. So it kind of got a day and a half or so. And, so I got to do some extra stuff. Got to hang out with the, Spartan Mexico guys. And when I say the Spartan Mexico guys, I'm referring to, I don't think that's where I should go. I'm referring to Eduardo Moreno and, Juan Paul. Shoot, I don't even think I know Juan Paul's last name. Juan Pedro. Sorry, not Juan Paul. Juan Pedro. Pedro. My tongue and my lips don't do a great job of pronouncing. Now I'm just not even pronouncing English. Okay, let me try this again. Pronunciating the R's. I don't know if anybody else has ever noticed this, but I feel like I've had swollen lips in the past. And my top lip tends to be a little bigger. I feel like it messes up my rolls. But anyway, Juan Pedro. See? Can't do it. Pedro. My tongue just sucks at it. I don't know. But anyway, so those two guys, awesome guys, they are the ones that, them and a bunch of other people, obviously. But they're the ones that are part of the team that owns the license for Spartan. And what I actually just learned this trip was that they also, so it's Azdeporte is the name of the company that owns the license, but they also have the license for Ironman down in Mexico as well, amongst some other things too. And they're hoping to get DECA down there soon. They tried to get High Rocks and that fell through, and they're hoping to get DECA now. I think from what I heard, High Rocks was just too antsy, and they wanted to make it happen fast, and we just weren't fast enough, and so somebody else picked it up. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. Let me talk about the race real quick, and then I got 20 minutes before I pick up my son. So talk about the race real quick, and then get into some technical stuff, and then what I did for the rest of the weekend. The race was a really beautiful course. Very interesting to me, because when I think Mexico, I think dry. And if you go to Mexico City, it's pretty dry. And if you go east of Mexico City, it's very dry. Where the last race was in Puebla was very dry. And I've also been to Leon, Mexico, which is actually more like northwest, and it was very dry. And also been to San Luis Potosí for the North American Series race last year, and it was very dry. So all of my experience of internal Mexico has always been the very dry Mexico. And this time, Valle de Bravo, so 2 hours away from Mexico City, was very not dry. It was very green and lush. What I learned about it is that area has a big lake, and that lake feeds water down into Mexico City. And supposedly it's starting to it's very low, but that's what it's there. It's been providing that to Mexico City for a long time. And so that area gets a lot of rain. So in Mexico City, you're somewhere around 6,000 to 7,000 feet elevation gain, or elevation, not gain, talking like a racer, elevation. And when you go to Valle de Bravo, you go over some mountains and you go all the way up over 10,000 feet. And I think where the race was probably, it was around 9,000. And there was about 1,200 feet of gain. So you might have, during the race, I don't remember for sure, but you might have actually hit 10,000 feet while in the race. But that was in the super. So the series race, I'm trying to talk fast, because I don't have a lot of time. So sorry. But, the series race was a sprint. So it actually was only a few hundred feet of gain. It really wasn't a ton. It was enough to be, hilly. Like, it wasn't a flat course, but it was flat in comparison to many of the other Spartan races. Like, even the Dallas area has probably more elevation gain than that race did. But, which is crazy, because it was up in such a high elevation area. And I actually mentioned this a couple times to them. It was so odd that Puebla was in a flatter area, but the race itself was on a mountain, so it was more elevation on the race than the city. But here, the city actually was very hilly, but then when you go into the race, it was only, moderately. It wasn't like quite as hilly, even though it was higher elevation than the city itself, the city of Valle de Bravo. So that was kind of neat. But what was really cool about it is that the sprint wasn't nearly as exciting as the super. And honestly, I wish that I would have gotten to experience the beast to see where it went, because the super had way more different types of environments, biomes, than the sprint. It was really cool. You went through a lot of just kind of like dirt and rocky roads, but then there was some trails through these open fields that had these plants that like sprung up and had a whole bunch of little off of them, and so they were just all over the place, and that was really pretty. And then you went through some forests. All the forests had no ground. Well, the forest I'm thinking of right now had no ground coverage, so it was very like you could see through the trees. But then you also went through some areas that was extreme vegetation, like very jungle feel, lots of palms and just very wet. And now when I ran it, it did rain, so obviously it was wet for that reason. But for the sprint, for the National Series race, we saw Angel Quintero, Soto Perez, and Eugenio Godinez. They were the top three. Now, the race, obviously, go watch it if you before you listen to this. So, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. Okay, I assume you watched it. So, Soto and I think. So yeah, Soto and Angel actually, no, I'm sorry, Soto and Eugenio kind of led the way the majority of the race, and Angel was maybe 20 to 30 seconds behind them the majority of the time. And then when they came into the final gauntlet, somewhere in there, unfortunately we missed where the pass was made, but somewhere in there, Angel and Cero were in front. And both of them missed the spear. So they were on the spear penalty loop. And Eugenio made it. And then he got through the last obstacles, which was after the spear. You had a wall, capital A-frame, barbed wire crawl, multi-rig, slide under the truck, and fire jump. So nothing too crazy. And Cero and Angel came through with, on the rig at the same time. And honestly, I don't think that they, neither one of them really made or lost any ground right there. It's just that Cero was just slightly ahead, and that's about how much he won by. It was a very tight race for third. And then, third and fourth, or fourth and fifth, I don't know who they were, but I take this back. On the live stream, you see two people flying into the finish, and I think they were in the trail race for sure, but they might have been first and second. I don't know, but yeah, they were split second from each other. It's pretty crazy. The women, we saw Eloise. I'm not going to say her last name because I can't remember it right now. I might mix them up. I do remember Dulce Flores. Eloise was in the lead for the majority of the race, and Dulce was with her, and then Barbara Reyes, I believe, was in third, and she kind of stayed in third, a little ways behind them for the majority of the time. Eloise and Dulce, they kind of went back and forth, so it was actually a pretty good race between them, and they ended up on the rig at the same time, and Dulce was just way faster through it. Eloise, I guess she was just trying to be careful, and she just ended up being slower. They basically got on it at the same time. And so, yeah, Dulce took the win. So very good, exciting racing on both the men and the women's side. Really awesome to start to get to be more familiar with the athletes. We interviewed them after, so I'm starting to see their faces and be able to put their faces with their names better. So that makes me happy. It's obviously we want the commentators to be able to know these athletes. That's huge. And the more I can know these athletes, the more I can help the commentators know them as well. So I'm happy about that. Now, Barbara, this was her second, I think, race. I think her first Spartan race was the first Mexico Series race in Puebla. So this is only her second one. So she, unfortunately, just doesn't know the rules as well. And she dropped her Hercules bag and didn't do the penalty loop. So they gave her a 10-minute penalty. Now, if you go look at the results, it might still be messed up. I don't know what's going to happen there. Hopefully it'll get fixed and she'll stay and actually get some points for the series, even with the penalty, because there's no reason to disqualify her. She just, get a penalty. But she should have still been 6th or 7th or 4th or 5th even, because just the way the times fell with the rest of the girls. Great races. The live stream was honestly a mess. And, this is just a reoccurring thing that I get on here and talk about all the crazy stuff that happened during the live stream. I was just coming off of a live stream from the weekend before, and so, you lose the time to really tighten things up. So I was really going off of what I had prepped from the last race, but switching it over to a post live instead of a live show, making tweaks here and there, and I just messed some things up, and some of the graphics showed up on the Spanish version when they shouldn't, should have been different graphics. So at some point, the video that we had from my camera actually stopped playing when the women got on the rig. It was the craziest part for it to happen. So it took me a minute to figure out what to do in that moment. So I ended up throwing it to the commentators, which actually was me and Miles Keller, and then Eduardo and Wampa, el Spartan Professor, I don't know, I'm messing that up. The Professor of Spartan is what they call him. Wampa. He's I think his name's Juan Pedro as well, but Juan Paul maybe. Wampa, yeah. His name's Juan Paul, so they call him Wampa. They were the commentators, and so we threw it back to the commentators, and then while I was figuring out what happened, it took me I went ahead after some point in time I got the interviews that we did with the guys playing while I continued to troubleshoot what was going on, and I ended up having to bring in, like, basically I had multiple videos and I had stitched them all together, and for whatever reason the last section of mine didn't want to play, so I ended up bringing in the original video and playing the women's race, the end of the women's race off of that. So we let the men's interviews finish and then went back to the women's race finish and then showed the women's interviews, and then that was it. That was the show. I did forget to show the map at the beginning. Whenever I showed the results at the end, it didn't show up on the Spanish speaking side. So all kinds of just silly stuff that, the commentators couldn't hear the video, the cameras for the longest time, I think. And so eventually I got it to where they could actually hear. But I think they didn't realize it until it was the interviews, because they texted me and they're like, hey, we can't hear the interview. I was like, oh, well, you probably couldn't hear the rest of the videos the entire time too. So just lots of a mess, but still, and our rabbits could have been better rabbits. We had a few good ones, some that were not so great, but we had 8 total, including me as a rabbit. And with those 8, only one of the videos, something happened. Maybe I think I just pulled the wrong videos off of his phone. So out of all that, we got all the cameras for the most part. One of the things that and this is all about translation and the person doing the translating, not really understanding the process super well. And now that he understands the process, I think going forward, we're going to have a better experience with the rabbits, because he's able to explain things a little better now that he kind of saw what's all going on. But, I told them all to start their video at 9:05, and basically only one of them did. So all the rest of them didn't. So it just complicates it for me, because I've got to make sure that when their video starts, as the rest of the videos are playing, I've got to hit play on theirs at the right time. And if I'm not paying attention, then I mess it up. And so, I actually ended up fast forwarding my video because I thought I was behind at one point, and then it turns out it wasn't. So when you watch it, there's a couple of spots where, basically it goes back in time for a minute or so. And that was on me. That was my fault. But, nothing wrong with seeing the same thing from a different perspective. It's good replay stuff. But yeah, so it was rough. It was a rough show, but it was a good show still, I think. The Mexican guys were extremely happy with it. They are eager, since the next race is going to be in Mexico City at a military college. They're eager to get some of their racing friends to actually rabbit for us. So it's going to be a beast, and they're going to try and work with getting, more vehicles during the race, like maybe use some ATVs and stuff. So we're pretty excited about it. And they say, now they're going to do some checking, but they say that the cell signal there is really good because it's in the city. So we may be able to do live. We're not 100% sure on that, but that's a possibility. So good race, good show. Lots of stress, I say stress, whatever stress means to me. But we did the show, it was a great time, wrapped it all up, and then, before I talk about the rest of the weekend, after we did the rabbiting of the race and I got all the footage onto the computer, I went and ran the super with my GoPro for a for an all obstacles video. And like I said, the super was a gorgeous course. Like, you just ran through so many different areas, and it started raining on me halfway. Not even halfway, to be honest. Probably maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles in, it started sprinkling, and then later on it was raining really hard. And like I said, the temperature there was not hot. So it was just hot enough, just warm enough, or just cool enough that I started without a shirt, and I knew it was going to probably rain on me, so I was probably going to have to deal with that. But I felt fairly comfortable while running. And again, this is high elevation, so I'm having a hard time, especially running up the hills. But I'm running and feeling pretty comfortable. But when I got to an obstacle and would set the phone down, when I'd set the phone down and do the obstacle, I actually cooled down within, less than a minute, and I would start like running again. Like, I would get kind of like a chilly for a second. That's how, especially with the rain, that's how cool it was. It was cold enough that running without my shirt on, I was getting a little chilly. I was kind of like teetering on being worried about being too cold. But it turned out to be okay. And just continuously running, running decently at a decent pace, I felt good. I was nice and warm, without being like crazy hot and crazy dying. And, so I've talked about doing DECA and how my time has improved because I've lost some weight. I've been working out more consistently, and it really showed on this race. Like, I felt just really good running, even at the high elevation. I felt good, freaking bombing down hills. All the obstacles, even wet, gave me no problems whatsoever. Like, even on Olympus, so you'll see this if you watch I actually put a reel out showing a few of the obstacles on Instagram. So it's just a, minute and a half, kind of like a preview of the all obstacles video. And on Olympus, they do have that new material on Olympus, and it was wet. So I tried, putting my feet on it, and I was slipping off. And so I just, I didn't put my knees on it as some people tend to do. I just hung, kept my feet up, and traversed on the holes. And even like that, I didn't get tired. It was fine. Like, I did it pretty easily. Monkey bars, I did a matching sideways grip, reverse grip, on the rig. I did matching grip there too. The hardest part on the rig was getting up the pipe, because the pipe was inclined. So just kind of 90-degree elbow lock, just making sure that you have a tighter grip going up that. And then on the rings, I did matching grips, and I did like one and then skip one, and then one and then skip one. I think I did 2 in a row and then skipped another one. But it was all just because I wasn't getting quite the pull, which I could have if I'd have really thought about it. But it was still, I got through it no problem. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so yeah, even in the rain, I felt really strong and confident on the obstacles, which made me really happy. So yeah, my race was fantastic. I can't wait to edit that video. Like I said, if you hear this before the video comes out, which you probably will if you are listening, there's a preview reel of it on Instagram and YouTube. The Instagram one's a minute and a half. I had to cut down the YouTube one to a minute because that's what shorts are max length wise. So go check that out. It's got a little music to it, obviously, so I think it's good. It's a fun watch. You can really see the rain pouring down in some of those shots. It's really cool. So yeah, as far as technical wise go, I really, just like Canada, I packed down light. I didn't check a bag. I brought just the gimbals. I actually brought a little more on this time because I brought an extra screen. I got one of those screens that just connects onto your laptop screen, and it's got 2 fold-out screens. And so I packed that, and I packed my camera so that I had a nice camera on me, and I also packed my stream decks, both my stream decks, so that I had my shortcuts. Got on my butt. Get off my butt. I wonder if you can see that in the video. Probably not. Anyway, so speaking of driving, friggin' Mexico is wild with driving. I kind of really like it because here I feel like we've got the laws for the road, and because we're so stringent about it, when people suck at following the rules, people easily get mad at them. Like we have, America has a lot of problems with road rage, and I think it's because you got the laws and people suck at following the laws. So then it's like, you idiot, stop, doing this. You cut me off, you bozo, you're not supposed to do that. Just all that kind of stuff. But in Mexico, you still got the laws, but they're followed more loosely, and people you just go. Like if you got room, you go. And you don't have people honking at you and flipping you off and trying to cut you off and yelling at you and all that, tailgating you and all that kind of stuff. People just don't do it. You just go, and if you got a problem, somebody might honk, but it's just like, hey man, come on, let's go. Like there's no just angry emotion behind it. It's really wild. Sometimes if there's red lights and there's nobody around, people just go. They just go for it. It's just seriously, it's probably not as bad as India, I bet, but if you've got the space, you go, and it's okay, not a big deal, All right, so after that night, after the race, we did have some dinner that night. Man, I ate so much good, authentic, just local stuff. All of it's tortillas, either beans or meat or both, and cheese or maybe not cheese. And then, of course, some sauces and such. So basically every meal is all that. Not 100%, but for the most part. And so that night we had dinner, and then I did the race coverage the next morning. And then Sunday night we went out to Mexico City, and they showed me around kind of like the touristy areas, like downtown, kind of some of the statues that are there, the government buildings, one of these really nice hotels, the big square where the president comes out and they say that he, flies the flag and he says, "Viva la Mexico!" and everybody yells, "Viva!" And it's just some of the things they do. Idiot. See, that's the thing. It's this guy, I mean, he's being an a-hole, though. He's driving on people's butt and he's just driving crappy. People don't drive crappy in Mexico. They just drive as needed. Anyway. They don't want to drive, I guess they do drive aggressively. But it's not in it's not in a mean way. It's not like, I'm mad at you and I'm going to drive around you so fast. It's just, I'm just going, man. Just going. Just making it happen. So we went out, we went to this place that, a lot of it, that downtown, a lot of it felt like New Orleans. Some of the places they took me to, one of the places had a crap load of mariachi bands, and it felt like that could have been where Bourbon Street is, kind of thing. Just really crazy that it's a very similar feel. You get all the same downtown vibes, some of it's dirty, you get some homeless people, you got lots of places to hang out, lots of bars, lots of people trying to sell you stuff, street vendors, all that stuff. So very interesting, the kind of place that you probably wouldn't go. Personally, I wouldn't go. Why is this down? Personally, I wouldn't go if I lived there. Make sure I get this exit. Yep. If I would live it, when I lived in New Orleans, I went to Bourbon Street a couple of times, usually because it was with friends that were from out of town. But, so probably like if I lived in Mexico City, I'd probably do the same thing there. The next day, Eduardo and Juan Pedro, they went into the office, and me and this girl, Nora, that actually worked with, she's a friend of Eduardo's, but she's been living in Mexico City for about a year, and she worked with Spartan for the race. So she was helping out with that. So she hung out with us as well. And she was very nice. So she showed me around while they were working. So we went to a coffee shop, got a coffee, and did a little work ourselves. And then we went to a place that was like an old house, and it looked very similar to kind of some of the stuff you see in the U.S. from like the 1800s, maybe even 1700s. Very high ceilings, very decorative, plaster all around the whatever you call that area right underneath the ceiling, and old furniture, very, very old furniture, lots of old art. Very cool little house museum that we went to. Green atrium in the middle of it, just open space, lots of plants and stuff. It's very, very neat. And then Eduardo and Juan Pedro said, we're actually not going to be ready till 6. So we thought we were going to be ready at 2 or 3. So we were like, well, we've got 3 hours to kill. What's a good thing to do in 3 hours? Go see a movie. So I was like, well, let's go see a movie. I want to see a Mexican movie in Mexico in a Mexican theater. And while she said there was only one that was actually a Mexican-made movie, she didn't want to watch it because she said it was going to be depressing. I think I'm not really sure why. She didn't tell me the plot of it. But we ended up seeing Exuma, a Korean movie that was in Korean with Spanish subtitles. And the wildest thing is the very beginning of the movie starts in Los Angeles. So it actually starts in the United States. So within the movie, there's like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 lines of English within the whole thing. The rest of it's in Korean. The subtitles are all in Spanish. And so following along with that, like the movie was kind of out there and wild in itself, but following along with that made it that much more intense, trying to figure out what was going on and trying to watch the Spanish words and pick up the few, where I could. So very unique experience. Watching a Korean movie in a Mexican theater with Spanish subtitles. It was really cool, and I enjoyed it. Then after that, we got some more dinner, and we had like some ceviche with some fish and some kind of spicy soup that had shrimp in it that was amazing. They gave me a tuna tostada that was phenomenal. Speaking of food, we came on the way back from Valle de Bravo. We stopped at these small towns just had all these little restaurants, like constantly, one after the other. And they all had somebody outside waving a big flag, like, come on, come park right here. Come on in. And they were so enthusiastic about trying to get people to park and come eat at their restaurants. And we stopped at one of those, and they had some fantastic stuff. And there, Eduardo explained to me that quesadillas are basically what we consider tacos, whereas tacos are a taco with just meat. Like, you don't typically get cheese on a taco. Taco is just the meat. And if it's got cheese, that's a quesadilla. And obviously, our quesadillas are like that too, but typically you get a quesadilla, it's a very large flour, large tortilla, whereas these are just like the normal size, taco size tortillas. And we split 3. We had one with some kind of flour in it. I think he said it was the flour of the pumpkin, possibly. One had, some pork, different, and chorizo, and then mushrooms. The other one had mushrooms. And we had Aztec soup, which is like a tortilla soup. It was phenomenal as well. All of it. Oh, so good. And so anyway, back to Monday evening, that with that tuna tostada. Nora had a shrimp burger. I don't think you've ever heard of a shrimp burger before, but it was basically just a bunch of smashed up shrimp into a patty, and it was so goddamn good. It was like I ate not half of it, but I ate a big piece of it because I tasted it. I was like, wow, that is amazing. And she wasn't going to eat it anyway, so I had some more. So good. Just ridiculous food. Everywhere we went, lots of good stuff. Got some churros at the end of the night because, didn't want to leave Mexico without getting some churros. And then to top it all off, my flight was supposed to take off at 5:05 in the morning with a boarding time of 4:30 or something like that. And with international flights, you never know. You don't have TSA pre-check, so you never know how crazy it's going to be. And I've been on some that I've barely made my flight. So I just said, the guys want to play some soccer. They had a soccer match at 10 o'clock at night, and they wanted me to come play with them. So I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then so I was like, I'm going to go play the soccer match, and then I'm just going to take a shower and then go to the airport after that. And so we did. We went to the soccer match, and this is the first time I've played some adult league soccer. I played as a kid, I played as an adult. But it's been like a decade since I've played in a league. I've, kicked a ball around here and there, but I really haven't played much. And so they were, it was obviously funny to tell them, yeah, I've played before, but it's literally been a decade since I've played. And, I think I held my ground pretty well for not playing for so long. I was playing, left back, and I definitely let in some of the goals. Like I was pressing too hard instead of, keeping space between me and the guy so they would get behind me. And that's probably why they got as many goals as they did. But, second half, they kind of pointed that out to me, and they're like, okay, you hold the space, you don't press, and, you make sure that you're keeping the guy on the left out. So I did a lot better after that. And then, at the very last, we had 15 seconds left, and I was like, all right, let's go, one más. And so I took off because there was nobody in front of me. So I took off with the guys, the front, guys, the two strikers, and, they had people all over them, and I was wide open. So I was like, aquí, and they passed it to me, and I took a shot, and I actually got the shot on goal. It was right at the goalie, but I didn't blast it over the goal like I thought I might, and like I saw some of their strikers do several times during the match. So I was pretty proud of that. It was cool. It's not like that was the end of the match. So I went to the airport and got on the plane, and then they said they had mechanical issues and the flight got canceled. So we had to go off, get a new flight, go back through security, and get on a flight. And I got the flight at 11 something, and I'm just getting home at 4:37. So that was my weekend. Thanks for listening. See you next time. See you actually next weekend for War X.